case. Joining me now is Dr. Dan Diker, who is president of the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs. And good evening to you. And I don't know whether you can shed any light on this. There doesn't seem to be any confirmation, but this has been hinted at by Benjamin Netanyahu. And now we're hearing that other Israeli officials, rather, are talking to Reuters and saying that Khamenei is dead. What are you hearing there?
Mark, good evening to you all in London from Jerusalem. I heard fewer than 10 minutes ago, by the way of the Israeli media, by the leading commentators on Israeli international affairs, that the Supreme Leader may be healthy and well, but not in this world, that he has been killed. And we're facing, it's a new reality today in Tehran. And as the gentleman said on the program, the beginning of a new power struggle for leadership. My sense of it is, and we at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, who have dealt with the highest levels of the Israeli opposition, believe that there is a major thrust towards a different type of Iranian leadership, one that tends to parallel the type of demonstrations that we've seen among the Iranian public for a free Iran, as opposed to a frightened Iran in the type of regime that we've seen for the last 47 years.
Right, let me jump in there. The Iranian state media is now quoting the head of public relations at the Supreme Leader's office saying, well, not that he's alive, but saying that the enemy is resorting to mental warfare. All should be aware. So, well, it's difficult to say. I mean, were he to be dead, what do you think the impact would be?
Very consequential, in fact, because the Iranian people understand the sources of Iranian regime negotiating behavior based on strength and power. And it was clear, if we remember back in 1979, when the Shah fell from power, that people were beginning to yell at the end of the Shah's reign, Khomeini, Khomeini, and many people didn't know who Khomeini was. They're looking for the next powerful leader in order to take the reins, and they respect that type of power. But this is a new morning for the Iranian people. So many of them, by the tens of thousands, have lost their lives in fighting this regime, and hundreds of thousands have been wounded. And there is a major thrust, as you probably know, in the Iranian public for democracy, freedom, and pro-Western sentiment. So I'm quite unsure that the leadership will move from the religious leaders in Qom to the most severe members of the IRGC. I'm quite sure that the United States and its allies, particularly Israel, would like to see a free Iran. And Prime Minister Netanyahu just minutes ago was shown to speak directly to the Iranian people, similar to President Trump, saying, take your future in your own hands, the future of freedom, the future of security and liberty and the end of so many decades of fear, trembling, and trauma that this murderous regime has enforced on its own people, and, by the way, on Brits and on Israelis and on Americans as well over the last 4.5 decades.
Now, what about the timing of this? I mean, I asked because there were these reports suggesting that there was some progress in this diplomacy in Geneva, a deal, we were told, by Oman, the foreign minister who was dealing with it, and by the Iranians. A deal was within reach. So why attack now?
You know, if we had gone back in the middle of the 20th century when Prime Minister Winston Churchill, during the evacuation of Dunkirk, was talking about fighting in the streets, fighting in the hills, fighting in the cities, we will never surrender. We are dealing with not only this era's Nazi regime, but we are dealing with a Nazi regime on steroids that is actually a regime that enters into hospitals and shoots children in the face. Would you trust such a regime to talk about diplomacy? This is really an issue of civilization opposite the worst form of barbarism. And in fact, I must say, as somebody who calls himself a student of the Middle East and of Iran, that there is a concept, as you probably are familiar with, called taqiyya, which is dissimulation, which is saying what it is that your adversaries or those sitting across would like to hear from you. The Iranian regime cheats, robs, and steals. That's what they do. That's what they believe. And that's why, in the end of the day, President Trump did not fall for that. And after this complete collapse, there was a collapse in diplomacy because the sides, factually speaking, did not agree on any of the conditions.
Right. Just finally, isn't it the truth, though, that Benjamin Netanyahu always wanted diplomacy to fail, really? He wanted to launch a military attack like this.
Not at all. Not at all. He would be very happy to engage in the kind of diplomacy that he was actually taking the risk, together with President Trump, to engage in opposite the new powers in Gaza, even those that come from the Palestinian Authority, who have incited to mass murder, who have incentivized its people to terror. So no, he very much wanted diplomacy, and in fact, let me please just finish the sentence. Prime Minister Netanyahu and the IDF have issued leaflets to the Iranian people telling them where to evacuate in order to avoid any civilian deaths. But as far as the regime is concerned, there's no one home to negotiate with. This is our era's version of the Nazi regime, and as Prime Minister Churchill said, they must be defeated.
Dr. Diker, well, I'm sorry, we've got to move on, but I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.